Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Today is November 4th, and this is another of our SIG CLI bi-weekly meetings. My name is Maciej, and I'll be your host today. And the agenda is literally packed with lots of good stuff. So let me quickly start with a couple announcements. We have a blocker bug happening the exact same time next Wednesday, November 11th. We have a Kubernetes 120 code freeze, which is happening the next Thursday, November 12th. So if you care about your code being reviewed or merged, make sure to do it before that November 12th. The next week, we will be holding virtual KubeCon North America. That is happening from Tuesday, November 17th until 20. I linked the agenda if you're interested. We as a SIG CLI, we have our own session. We've managed to put 4 people on that short 20 something slot. You'll hear from Phil, from Sean, from Eddie, and myself. So be sure to check it out as well. Finally, there's a kubectl debug survey from Lee. If you played with kubectl alpha debug currently, but we're migrating that to beta, so it will be promoted to a fully fledged kubectl subcommand. Please fill it out. We would like to hear from you, from people that are using. If you have other folks, please socialize the survey link as well. It will be very useful for us to gather some feedback about that command so that we can make it even better than it is. Yeah, Lee also sent it out to SIG CLI, mailing list, and KubeDev. So that should reach sufficient mass, I hope. Okay, so moving on to the main topics, unless Phil, Eddie, or Sean have anything to add.
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, so the first topic is kubectl staging. So with great help from Jan recently, we've managed to move kubectl to staging almost entirely. There's a one PR that's 96.190 that is still waiting approvals. I hope it will be green. There was one problem with flags to the kubectl convert plugin that we created, but I'm hoping that that should be solved. The auth shared code that was the biggest issue was moved by Jan Haupka over to the recently created repo, which is called Kates.io component helpers. And Jan also, right after that one merge, he moved the auth code to staging. So the only one remaining bit is moving the rest of kubectl to staging and converting the current convert command to a plugin, and that's what's happening in the final PR. What is important to notice is that for 120, we will continue to build kubectl from the main Kubernetes repo. And the only reason for that is that at this point in time, we don't want to complicate or change the release process because that wasn't agreed yet. We're hoping to start the discussion with the SIG release and SIG testing because there are still a lot of questions open about how to properly test kubectl with regards to its changes, how to test the main Kubernetes changes with regards to the kubectl. We need to cover all the cases in both directions smoothly. So we will be looking to answer those questions in the next releases, and then once we have all those answers in place, we will be able to cut the cord finally and move the entire development to its own separate repository. But the fact that we are already living in staging ensures that no dependency on the main Kubernetes code will be introduced. So that's a big one. And here I would like to thank every single person that either shared their ideas, helped reviewing, or made actual changes to the code to make this happen. And over the past, I think almost 3 years, there was a lot of people involved in that work. I could probably start naming them, but that's there's so many of them that I'm worried that I might forget about some folks. So if you're interested, I would probably encourage you to look at the Git history and see who was whom to blame for this. So thanks a lot to everyone involved in that effort. Are there any questions with regards to this topic, or ideas or suggestions that people want to cover before we move on to other topics? Okay, hearing none. So I guess Eddie, and you will probably want to share the screen. Let me quickly stop sharing and make you a co-host.
So this kind of ties in to what you just talked about a tiny bit. Do we have plans to, I guess we'd need to talk to Nikita and the GitHub team, but do we want future kubectl issues opened on the kubectl repo? And is there a way we can kind of force or automate that?
That's a good question that I haven't considered yet. My guess is that we could probably improve the GitHub template for bugs to point people, if they are opening kubectl specific bugs, they should be opened against Kubernetes kubectl repo instead of the main KK. That's one possibility. I can't think of anything else yet. So definitely, as you said, probably syncing with Nikita and the rest of the remind me what's the SIG name that I'm thinking and I can't.
Contribex?
Yes, the Contribex, exactly. Thank you very much.
I think we also need to kind of update the README as well.
Yes, that's that's definitely a good point. There's a lot of things that we still need to
governance
address.
I think.
Sean, did you want to add something?
No, that's fine. Thanks.
Okay, so there was Mache hit me up. Was it last week or the week before? About we have several issues that are opened around like specific things, right? So if you take like kube control weight, for example, I think there's like 2 or 3 issues that are very specifically tied to that. We don't have a good way right now of tracking any of that. And so we were talking, and then I pinged Lori and pulled Lori in, and there's a conversation in the SIG CLI channel if you want to check that out. But the idea seems to be if we start with a project board, and then we can maybe expand and explore using some further labels like area, kube control, weight. I'm pretty sure these are arbitrary and we don't need to PR anything to add them in. I'm pretty sure we can just do a /prow command for them. But I took a shot at just throwing together a quick board and digging into kind of what the permissions are. And so this is project board 47 under the Kubernetes org. It's not under any specific repo. And anyone who's an org member should have full write access to this. So you shouldn't need to have any special permissions or be on any special teams, which is different actually from repo-specific projects. You need to actually have specific permissions and be on a certain team to actually control that. So this is an org level board, and this lets us pull in issues from different projects under the Kubernetes org. And the automation that's built in here is pretty rudimentary. I was hoping it'd be a little bit better. I am going to talk to Nikita about what we can do there. But it's pretty much, we manually have to add cards right now. And it looks like we can't even add them via the issue itself. This might actually be a special permission that needs to be added somewhere. But right now, once this is added to a card, I can come in here and move this. But there's actually no way to add it to a project from this repo view. So you actually have to come into the project here, search for the card via the issue number, and then you can add it to the project here. And so this is just like a rough shot. I mean, we can change this. We don't have to use this either. And we can modify the columns, but more just like presenting a proof of concept so we can start a discussion around how do we want to track these things, and would this be beneficial? And I know there's other tools out there like Kubernetes to look at like PRs that need your review and stuff. Do people use those tools instead?
So my original idea when I hit up Eddie with this was that we currently have, and that was, I think that was somehow related to one of our previous bug scrubs, where again, we hit a specific issue about, well, kubectl weight was a good example because I think it was brought up along those lines. And basically, currently we don't have any good way to say, oh, these are the open kubectl weight issues. You literally have to search for all kubectl weight issues. We don't group them in any way. I don't think the current labeling system allows for this kind of grouping. So I figure out that having, not sure if one or probably several project boards would allow us to somehow organize our thoughts and issues opened and divide them by categories or by topics that we want to pursue in the short term, long term, or something that is good for newcomers to bite their teeth on. So yeah, I'm open to hear what other people think about this.
And these are really lightweight too. So we can create these boards and delete them. And I'm pretty sure anyone who's an org member can have direct access to doing that. It's just under the org projects. And we can actually add people directly, it looks like, that aren't org members for some reason.
So one of the ways that we connect issues or PRs that are similar is we just throw links from one into the other, which this is much cleaner and better to organize it. But yeah, that kind of more awkward way is how we normally kept track of things that were related.
Yeah, Eddie and I. So if you work on Kubernetes stuff, there are different options, and cross-linking is one. But that's okay if you're closing because that's a duplicate of something else. If you're tracking several issues together, it's getting more and more complicated and having a summary. So I've noticed a lot, oftentimes people will create umbrella issues and they will keep on updating the initial description of the issue. But then again, over time, the description might get outdated. And this, again, falls out of any reasonable tracking. And you end up with yet another issue about this particular topic that people cross-link pretty much everywhere. So that's why we figure out that having some kind of a board to track this would be a good approach.
Yeah, and the umbrella issue isn't scalable, as in only the original author can edit that one, right? So we're stuck on that too. So sounds like there's no real objections about anything.
Yeah, I think so.
This is another one, just go set it up and we'll figure it out. Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Okay. I'll spend some more time playing in here and see if I can figure out I wish that there was a way for us to automatically get issues added that were labeled via something. It doesn't look like that's the case right now. So I'm going to go talk to the GitHub management team, see if they have any advice. I think that's the difference with project repos for, a project under repos, you can set that up automatically, but I don't know. I'll have to test it.
And we can probably go through open issues since we are reasonably up to date with issues thanks to our bug scrubs that Eddie is organizing once a month. We could probably just, revisit the ones that we already visited and shuffle them into appropriate projects once we set it up. So that's one possible option.
Cool. Anyone else have thoughts before we move on to that then? Okay, I will keep trucking and we'll see where we go with this. I'm going to talk to the GitHub team first. Cool. Next topic was very similar. So we've been using this tool Triage Party. What is it? There we go. So if you've been to a bug scrub before, we've walked through this. It's used in a couple other Kubernetes SIGs right now. SIG Release is actually using it a ton. They have a really nice config that we rolled out. So if you've been to bug scrub, you've seen this before. This basically is a GitHub issue and pull request aggregator that we can write a bunch of fancy YAML queries for, and everything in here is configurable in terms of sections. I'm just using the default config right now. And so I guess the reason I brought this up on the agenda is we need to figure out if A, this is going to be useful to anyone else outside of bug scrub, and B, what kind of shape or architecture do we want to make this config look like? And there's actually, I had a really nice doc from SIG Release. Oh, here it is. SIG Release and Lori specifically. Lori's just an amazing PM in general. So Lori put together this very awesome, I'll share this in the doc, but this is their plan for creating sections and prioritizing things and figuring out what goes where. And this is just hosted under a personal account right now for me, but we can actually move this to the Kubernetes org like SIG Release did. I think theirs is under, it's like page.sig release or something. I'll try to find a link for it. But yeah, so I rambled for a bit. Anyone have thoughts or interested in helping with this? No.
Hey, where's the link to this? Is that in the meeting notes right now?
Yeah, let me add that there. So,
It looks really cool, also complex. Not sure. Would like to try it.
it is awesome, and where I keep getting stuck is I keep opening the YAML config file, and it looks something very similar to this, where it's just a bunch of YAML and filters and queries. And so every time I open this file, I just look at it and close it. And that's why I think that Lori's approach was a lot better, in that they started with a high-level overview of what they wanted it to look like versus just jumping into writing YAML. So I'll link both of these in here.
Right. Linking both of those would be great. It'd be good to have I'm assuming there might be discussion here that compares this approach to like using the GitHub Kanban style project organization tool.
Yeah, so what I like is, so SIG release specifically uses both, and they use the board to track individual things via Kanban. And this is nice for like seeing all of your issues up front with labels and like getting them out of filters. So the section that we've been doing in bug triage is like unprioritized issues older than 7 days. And we usually go through here, figure out, this is usually like the past week or 2 weeks worth of issues. And this lets us quickly like, okay, this is a duplicate. Okay, this is a, so that's I think that's where the separation between the two tools is. Any other thoughts or volunteers, interest? Anyone know PMs that want to get involved in open source? Okay, I will bump that for now.
Eddie dragged me into a meeting about the triage party. I think that was last week or 2 weeks ago. Still, the guys that put together the triage party, they're pretty cool. So the project itself is super helpful. Jeff, if you're interested to have a closer look, next time when we will be having, next Wednesday, when we'll be having our bug scrap, you can join and see for yourself for a couple of minutes.
Yeah. When we get down on the stand-up, I wanted to talk a little bit about that too. Thanks. Yes.
Cool. I assume there were no further questions, so we can jump over to the next topics. Quick time check. We still have plenty of time to continue. D. Tyler, introducing colored output feature in kubectl. Want to talk about it?
Yes, thank you. Can you guys hear my voice?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Oh, thank you. So I have one thing that I want to talk here today. So the context is I already shared the link in the Google Docs, the GitHub issue comment. So let me describe more about the context. So at first, I wanted to see the kube control output in more something readable way. So I was looking for a way to colorize the output of kube control. So I found this issue, and I found a lot of comments are left on this issue. So, and I finally found currently colorizing output feature is not supported by official kube control. So I've developed software, I call it Kube Color. Kube Color is a wrapper tool for kube control. It internally calls kube control and get the output, and it shows the output in readable colors. So I share the tool in this issue, and thanks to Eddie, sorry if I'm calling you in a wrong way, but thanks. So Eddie found my comment, and he suggested me to talk about getting kube color in upstream in kube control. And he suggests me to talk about this in this SIG CLI meeting. So I am joining this meeting for the first time today. So what I want to know is if kube control should officially support this feature or not. So I want to get your feedback and your opinions widely. So if this feature looks acceptable, and if this feature should be implemented in upstream kube control, so I can start working on some design and start implementation. Probably I will start with very minimal and small implementation, because I am actually still thinking what's the best way to implement this in Cube Control, but yeah, anyway, I can start design and implementation. So can you open the pull request of this repository, Cube Color repository?
Yeah, I have it already open, and I see the examples. You should be seeing that
Yeah.
one as well.
Can you open pull request page?
Which one? Pull request?
In Cube Color repository.
Oh, okay.
So I started writing a design in that one. I started writing design. So my current idea is because I don't want to make any breaking changes for this feature. Now I am thinking to introduce a new command line option like -- color or -- pretty or something like that. And if the option is specified, then Cube Control will show the output in color. So if that option is not specified, then Cube Control does just a current behavior. So we don't need to make any breaking changes. So we don't need to make users confused. So yeah, that is what I'm thinking right now. But today I want to get your feedback about whether we should implement this feature in Cube Control, whether Cube Control should officially support this feature. But yeah, what do you guys think about this?
Before I'll start with questions, does anyone else have any other questions, suggestions?
Yeah.
Okay, so definitely the route of default off would be something that I would encourage, because like you said, it's a non-breaking change, and if people want to have more color for output, I'm perfectly fine, but they should be explicit about that option. My question mostly though is, how are you picking colors for specific elements? And I'm asking that because I've noticed that as examples, you have get pods, which is using the server-side printing, which dictates us how we should be printing stuff. And then, so kubectl get does not have control over what the output of those will look like, especially that one of the reasons for server-side printing was to support custom resource definitions of getting. We still have plans for moving describe the same way over to the server, because currently if you do kubectl describe built-in, it will work just fine because it's tailored for a particular resource. But if you do kubectl describe any kind of CRD, then it's a problem because we have only a generic describe, which is not necessarily helpful to some users. So I'm curious, based on what attributes or what conditions you're picking specific colors.
Yeah. So, if we if we introduce this feature in Cube Control, we should first decide server side or client side which should apply the color to the output. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking right now, and I didn't find which is better right now.
So the overall goal that we have in kubectl is to move, like ideally to have everything done on the server. So kubectl should have only minimal knowledge of elements living on the server. Ideally, we would have all the information for describe, for get coming from the server, and we would only present the data as given by the server. That's why I'm curious how to properly recognize that fact and build on top of that. There will be only a handful of client-side commands where we'll be doing something special. And the only reason for that is because special usually means it won't work with custom resource definitions and with the current push upstream where a lot of functionality is built as an extension to the core Kubernetes. We need to ensure that the core Kubernetes and kubectl functionality works properly with the extensions.
We can,
So-
I mean, some of this stuff can be done by convention. I think we can kind of break this up into two concepts. Like one is conceptually, like age, for instance, will be present. Like that doesn't differ for custom resources, right? Like age should be age, or like if it's not age, it's creation time, or I forget exactly what is shown there. Same thing with name. And then I think this can like fold into the like standardized status conventions, right? So like whether it's called name or conceptually, or called ready and status, or conceptually maps to ready and status, like we already have a notion of like using conditions and this sort of thing to communicate back to the client, like whether something is, what state it's in, whether it is completed its rollout or not. So we could just like standardize in some of those conventions, or at least map to, there's something that determines whether like it's in a steady state, whatever that is, it's green. And then maybe another thing is I'm not sure if you already mentioned this, but like the examples you've shown has a color background that's black, and so these show up pretty well. Like if the terminal's white, do we change? Are they different colors? Do they show up just as well? And that sort of stuff like might not make sense for the server. Like, does kube control send in a header? Like my terminal color is sand or something, right? And then the server sends back like, okay, that means this thing. I'm not sure on that one. But does it like choose the colors based on what the background of the terminal is?
So about background color, in current kube color, it supports the flag like -- light background. So if it is specified, it will use the colors preset for light background environment. Yeah, but now I think so. If we should not implement the colorizing feature in kube control, but we should implement it in server side. Yeah, I think that's I found it very difficult to implement. Yeah, so
I'm not sure we should implement like colorizing itself, like the specific rendering. I'm not sure it makes sense. Like we wouldn't implement like column wraps in the server side, for instance. There's certain pieces of rendering that don't like let the console do. I think it's more the right, and like you could imagine users wanting to swap out their palettes, right? So I think it's more marking up specifically like this field is colored this way because it is a field name, right? Or this is like priority is 0, it's pink. Maybe that's because it's an integer. It looks like color integer is pink or something like that. So maybe it's more about making sure the server is returning enough information to the client so that the client can mark up CRDs. the same way it marks up built-in types, and not
So
about
I
the current
think
server
if,
publishing.
let's say we have the mapping and the standardizations, then we can still provide the colors in the client side, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right. Like,
Yeah.
like
I
the
think-
user may have like a colors.config file too, right? Like the server shouldn't necessarily say.
Yeah, the server shouldn't actually knows about what kind of terminals that being used by the user. It's just too much information, I think.
But the server can say something like, this is a whatever, this is a status column, and then in your color.config you have, okay, status column is pink or whatever like that.
Yes.
Before we keep bike shedding on technical details, which we'll need for eventually, I don't want to interrupt anyone, but thank you for coming, D. Tyler. I appreciate you joining us and sharing. I think we should just like take a way step back and like, do we want color support added here officially? All right, like this issue has been open for 2 years. We haven't closed it as a no yet. D. Tyler has a very clear interest in building and owning this. So obviously, you know, I think we just need to make a decision to start, like, do we want colors in kube control? And then we can, you know, figure out the path forward to figuring out the actual implementation. Everyone's so eager to talk about like the technical details all the time.
I'm trying to find, if I remember correctly, there was in the past approach for colorizing kubectl output, but I cannot find it. It might be even go back to Brendan Burns doing a first stab at coloring output. His approach was slightly minimal because he started with only coloring certain aspects. But I can't remember what was the answer to that one, which would help us drive the discussion, because
So the arguments against, right, would be technical debt, right? And is this a priority, right? So someone's going to have to review this code and that sort of thing, and make sure it's tested and do all the normal work that needs to be done. I like, from a feature perspective, I like it. It looks pretty, and if it's opt-in, perfect. I would probably use it.
So it sounds like we are basically positive for colorizing output, but we need more detailed design, or we need more discussion about how to implement that, right?
Hey, one question, maybe Phil knows the answer to this. When I do colorized output, say from LS, and I pipe it into more or grep, I lose the escape codes that do the coloring. So if that's like that's a big downside. If coloring only works if I can't grep or more, that limits the utility in some sense.
Yeah, so that's why I am thinking I want to introduce a new command line option. So if a user wants to pass the output to another command like grep, so the user should not specify the option.
Let's do this, like, yeah, so can we get, like, I think the question we need to answer to move forward on this is like, how complex it is. How complex is it? And is the practical solution going to, you know, go against kind of the general approach, right? Like, is it too complex from the server side, and therefore we don't want to introduce it? Like in these sort of things, I think we just need to explore in the design itself. So my vote would be, let's move forward with a KEP, knowing that, like, we need to figure out the practical, like, there's a couple practical design pieces that we need to figure out. We need to make sure they don't scope creep or create a bunch of complexity, and can maintain kind of the line we've been taking about support for external types.
Oh, are you familiar with the KEP process, D. Tyler?
hand process?
So if you open the chat, Doug linked it, and I'll link it again for you. It's a Kubernetes enhancement proposal. And this is basically how feature proposals are added to Kubernetes itself. And it goes through a review process. So it sounds like this is probably the best place to start. And I guess I'm hoping that you'd want to own this and drive it through. So we would need to write up a KEP and submit it. And then what Phil said, we could dig into the actual technical implementation.
Okay, I will check them out.
One more suggestion when you will be thinking about the overall design.
Yeah, I want to spend my time for more detailed design, and I want to get your feedback again.
Yeah, so I looked, but I cannot find the past. If I find it, I'll definitely make sure to link the previous issue for coloring. But one of the reasons somebody wanted to have coloring is, for example, to be able to distinguish easily in the CLI when a pod is not running. So we would colorize the pod status or the entire row, up to you, based on the availability of the pod. So if it was running, it will probably be the way it is, or green, whatever. But in any other state, it would be different, pending maybe yellow, and anything else from image pool failures to failed or something like that would be red, so that when you're doing get paused, it stands out that there is a problem with this particular. The only downside and the problem with this is that it will have to be resource specific. And
Well,
yeah,
we have, again, I think we should fold this into the standardized conditions, right? Because the CLI, we've already built a number of libraries and such that are used to generalize from the CLI's perspective. This thing is in progress. This thing is stalled and not going to complete. This thing's not in progress and I finished it. And so those, I think, would map. Like if we can just build on that, like that, to me, kind of would be a possible solution.
so there is a topic that I'm pushing one of my team members to pursue, of standardizing the conditions for workloads. But since it's a bigger topic, we have that in our heads, but we haven't put together a proposal and actually start implementing, especially that it will require a significant effort, because we would have to rewrite, well, maybe not rewrite, but we have to change all of the controllers, still maintaining the old conditions and introducing the new ones in parallel.
I think we already have a library
but-
that does this. Like, Sean, maybe, do you remember? I mean, like, I remember that, I know the CLI utils or where it is exactly, but I believe there's already a library that looks at, like, has a standard approach and then looks at the built-in types for like deployments and stateful sets and then maps those to like the standard conditions.
Okay, so but you're talking about a library, and that's fine. I'm on the other hand talking about doing the standardization in the kube itself, which is somewhat similar, but it will be just easier for users to consume. Yeah, libraries are fine as a intermediate state for now. So I don't object on that one.
Just a quick note, there are other efforts, like addressing what Phil said. There are other efforts already underway, if we're aware of them, to standardize conditions, which is, I think it's in SIG architecture now, but anyway, just so we know that appears to be underway elsewhere.
So the meta point is that people are working on this problem. It's going to be solved someday. When it is, that will solve this issue for us. But we should hash it out on the design doc. just to figure out if we're going to wait for that or not, or hard code it, or what direction we take.
Okay.
The other thing to mention. Oh, go ahead, Maciej.
I mean, I wanted to close this. If at any point in time you get stuck, feel free to hop in on SIG CLI channel or show up on one of the next meetings, and we can, discuss this topic again. And you can gather some additional feedback if in doubt. Yeah, Eddie?
Yeah, D. Tyler, feel free to ping me. I'm Eddie Zane in Slack, or Doug Lands. I'm sorry, Doug, I can't say it. Landgraf. Feel free to ping me or Doug. Doug's actually working on a KEP right now that I think is actually pretty important to this one. Last week we had talked about, all the different bits about XDGG configs. And one of the things that was brought up was the separating user configs for kube control out into its own file, like a kube control RC. And I think that this is a clear need for something like that. So, if folks want to opt into the color by default, they don't want to have to pass pretty true every time or do an alias, right? Like they'd want to set, pretty true into a config file somewhere, and it would just automatically default that. So I see you saw what I said, Doug. So yeah, we should tie these use cases together for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Also, Doug wrote his KEP up, so we should all take a look at that.
Well, actually, moving on to the next topic, because we have about 10 minutes left, and I would love to cover the remaining topics. Doug has a PR review, and I think I owe you, Doug, review on that one. I'm hoping to go through that later today, tomorrow at latest. Unless you want to cover something else from that one. Not sure if Doug is on the call. Yeah, I see him.
I plan on getting that too.
I'll do it from my side. No problem. Thank you, guys.
Sorry.
It's not urgent. It's just something that looks like easy for you guys to review and manage.
Yeah, sure. We'll definitely make sure to have it reviewed this week. And I'm guessing the XDG base directory specification, that's for a broader review. I'm not sure if you want to talk a little bit more about the proposal itself, or we will leave it for some other time. I think it's something bigger to discuss. I know that I have it for a bigger review, but with the upcoming code freeze, I'm trying to go through the immediate stuff for 120 first before jumping on to the future topics.
Sure, no problem. You wait until the end of this week to start preparing a patch or something, just to listen to everyone before doing anything. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Doug. Phil, do you want to talk about the new docs site?
Yeah, sure. I just threw that out there at the end. Okay, so it's hosted out of the CLI experimental is where the docs live. This isn't the domain address we're going to use. We're in the process of getting like a DNS, like cli.sigs.k8s.io, but and that will allow us to move the site between repos or whatever we want. But it's living here for now because it was kind of the lowest bar for getting it deployed in a location. So that means that over the next week or two, we plan on trying to get the other sites pointing here. We're going to get, like I said, a new domain for this thing, and then try and get the control.docs pointing here, and then try and figure out the customized site. Like the customized content and control docs content was both migrated into this page. Basically migrated exactly as it was, and then Sam and I spent time rewriting it and restructuring it and deduping and that sort of thing, but we shouldn't be losing a whole lot here. So we're gonna try and update those sites to redirect here, and then this will be the new site. And so there's like a section, there's like a contributing section and a back section, and so that means like anyone who's in the discussions in the past where we've been like, we need a back, that would be a location there. That's a good location. And that's all.
Cool. Thanks a lot. And let's not forget that the entire work was done by Siam, if I remember correctly, his name.
Yep. Siam, who usually can't make it because it's pretty late, but it's Siam Sundar K. And he's on the Kubernetes Slack, so if you want to congratulate him, go send him a message and say, great job.
Yeah, there's a Kubernetes is currently part of the beta program for shoutouts on GitHub. So you can definitely use that in some of the repos and send him
that's
some
great.
shoutouts. Okay, we still have about 5 minutes left. Before we move on to stand-ups, there's one thing that I forgot to do, which is introducing new folks on the call. And I've noticed that we have...
So with 5 minutes left, let's go to the stand-up for Kustomize. We should talk about that.
Yeah, so Matcha, if you're willing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got about 1-2 minutes of content on that link if you click on that guy, because I don't want to present. I'm running a Intel Pentium from 1981 here. Okay, so our goal is to release every 2 weeks. Ideally on Wednesday, but in practice it turns out to be we close out all the PRs on Wednesday and release on Thursday. So the next release is going to be 387 on the 12th. We're trying this Kanban process. There's a link to that. We're still learning how to use it. The goal is to get the headings correct, like what's under consideration should be under consideration, what's in progress should be in progress, the reviews in progress, and what's done. That's meant to be honest. So this is going to be the same link from sprint to sprint. And the goal is more visibility, faster releases, and we want to encourage more maintainers to pick up work and know what to pick up. So what do you think about the following? I'll show up at the SIG CLI meeting on the Bug Scrub on the 11th and start a breakout session for anybody who's interested in detailed context on the work and do sprint planning and Kanban style planning on that day, and then just do that every 2 weeks, see how that thing goes. And then the highlights for the next release is we've got now a built-in plugin for Helm, and we will probably add more primitives to the customization file to make Helm easier to integrate. We're doing a better job on container port merging. There's multiple keys in the container port, not just one key. So we're closing a long-standing bug, at least from the point of view of Kustomize. We're closing kubectl, there's a long-standing bug. We're working on better release notes and making that automated. And Brian Persley, I still owe you a review. It's 2020. I'm sorry, things are not going so great this year, but that is a high priority for me to get that thing tested. I want to test a few things on my own clone and make sure that it makes sense to me. So that's it. So the big news next week, I'm going to try a breakout session for planning for Kustomize if you want to show up. Does that sound good, Mike? Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
Jeff, do you just want to run the next Bug Scrub and we can dedicate it to Kustomize?
If it's dedicated, sure. Because I also don't want to usurp kubectl work either, right? So I was thinking the breakout is to let people, but yeah, either way, I'll show up. We can win without that. If everybody who shows up just wants to do Kustomize, fine, then we'll just do Kustomize. Otherwise, we could split it out.
Yeah, the other option is we can do half by half. Half do kubectl debug, kubectl bug scrub, and the other half we can devote to Kustomize, just to kick it off.
Is that a hard time box of an hour then? Is that or does it? Okay, great. So we could do 30 minutes then? That'd be fine. 30 is probably enough.
Yeah, I think so. That's a good starting point. Cool.
Okay.
Okay. I'll catch stand-ups here. We have another minute, and would love to get the newcomers to introduce themselves. I think we lost one person, but going from the top, Tyler introduced himself. I think Mike Camp is new. Is that correct? You want to introduce yourself?
I was here last week.
You are here. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. And if that's the case, Muhammad Bala, were you here last time? Okay, he's silent.
You may be on mute if you're trying to talk.
And Ricardo, I think you introduced yourself last time, but I can't remember. Or you did
No,
not yet.
this is my first time in SIG CLI. Usually I go to SIG Network, but as I started to help in some issue triage and some pull requests, I am here like trying to be helpful.
Yeah, Ricardo was helping me with a couple of stuff. So hi, Ricardo, and thanks a lot for your help.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for
We've managed to merge several create commands and related. Cool. Is there anyone else that I know? I think IRV Ayani, she was here and she was speaking up, but I don't see her anymore in the participants list. If you're new, I think Ram is new here. And if you want to introduce yourselves, now is your chance.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. This is Ram. I'm based out of India. I'm new to this SIG CLI, and this is my first meeting. I'm looking forward to contribute in whichever way I can.
Cool. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think we have all covered. So we're 1 minute over. I don't want to keep you any longer. Thank you very much. As usual, it was nice seeing you all. And thank you very much. See you next time. Bye,
Thanks,
all.
and congrats on that kube control staging. Like that is, like I don't know. That's huge. Beyond words, really, beyond words.
Yeah, thanks.
That's really awesome.
Cool. Thanks a lot. Bye, all.